Continuing where we left off with our coding example, I added in the coded responses for our other two Likert scale variables, so the numbers are there as well. In this video, we're going to explore editing data. Editing data is mostly used to search for inconsistencies. Some helpful methods of editing include sorting, filtering, and using pivot tables. The first thing I'm going to do is structure my data in more of a tabular format by adding in filters. So if I go to the headers and press the filter button, it automatically goes across the top row and adds those filters for me. I can actually use the filters to look for inconsistencies in my data because it's going to show me the different categories. Notice that most of the categories seem to make sense except for there's 2 for moderate smokers, and that's all because of spacing. Sometimes there's no space between 8 to 20 and the dash in the middle, and for the other one there's a space in between. We need that to be consistent, so any of the ones that don't have a space in between, which I can find right here, I should put in the spaces. Otherwise it's going to count as 2 different categories if you want to make any kind of table that shows the different responses. So there is one piece of information that I fixed, and I'm just going to highlight it in a different color so we can keep track of all the changes we've made along the way. I could do that for every single variable and make sure there's no overlap in the categories. Tell myself look for mistakes. Here's all the ones I've already coded, so I'll keep going from there. For gender, here's another inconsistency. We have one that's just recorded as a W. That could be a typo if you were manually entering data, but we would assume that W means woman. W for woman, that it was just inconsistently recorded, so that would be another inconsistency. And if I want to keep looking for them, I'll check age. These ages seem to make sense, but somebody actually typed 21 instead of a number. They wrote it in words in the response box, but we can easily fix that. Turn it into a number, change it to the number 21 to help keep everything consistent. And then how they felt about the survey. That could only be the numbers 1 to 5. That was a rating question at the end of the survey, and only the numbers 1 to 5 are there. So everything else seems to make sense. So now that I've fixed 3 mistakes due to inconsistencies in data entry, I'm going to have to try to see if other responses make sense. This is the hardest part to find. Sometimes sorting can help you to look across the rows and see if any information does not make sense, but another useful tactic is to make a pivot table. I'll show you what I mean. For example, if somebody smokes 0 cigarettes, obviously they should be a non-smoker. Making a pivot table for this information can help us to see if that is actually correct. So I am going to go to my Insert tab, press the pivot table button, and it automatically senses this whole area. I'm going to place the pivot table in this existing worksheet right below my data table. I'm going to look at if people are currently a smoker. Yes and no are the only options, so you'll see them appear here. And in the columns, I'm going to put how many cigarettes they smoke on average. If I then drag one of the variables I've already selected into the columns, it should count all of them for me. And this can help me to look for errors because, as you can see, somebody who said that they smoked 0 cigarettes a day said that they were a smoker. That does not make sense because if somebody is a non-smoker, they should say no to the question of if they smoked or not. So that is definitely an inconsistent response. The problem is it might take us a little bit of time to go back into the data and find it because we only have 30 people here. It's not too hard to find. We can see this person said yes, but they smoked 0 cigarettes. They're a non-smoker. They also said for their response, how old were you when you first started smoking? I have never tried smoking a cigarette. So if that's the case, it's most likely they just pressed one wrong button when entering in the yes. And you're pretty safe to change that over to a no, that they're not currently a smoker because they've never tried cigarettes and they smoke 0 cigarettes a day. And that was probably just some kind of error. Another place where you can notice an error is that there's one person who said that they are a heavy smoker, 21 plus per day, but that they're not a smoker. So you can't be both a heavy smoker and not a smoker. Looking for that person, they're right here. No, but they smoked 21 plus per day. They were also 17 to 20 when they first started smoking. For this person, you would most likely have to follow up on their information to see what they actually meant. They could not currently be a smoker, but they might have put how many cigarettes they used to smoke when they did smoke, but now they've quit. So you'd have to actually contact them to clarify if they're smoking now, or maybe if they just pressed the wrong button and they meant to enter yes here. But these ones are the hardest to actually tell apart. Finally, There's one more person where there's a little bit of an inconsistent response. This person right here. It says they're currently a smoker. They smoke 18 to 20 a day, but then they put that they've never tried smoking a cigarette. This must have been an error. But again, if they're smoking, it's obvious that they've tried a cigarette at some point in their life. So we'd have to actually contact them. Obviously, they did not understand the question and get them to give us the correct response for how old they were. That shows how pivot tables, like we made here, can actually help you to find those inconsistent responses, especially when you have more data points than just 30. And when you have thousands or hundreds of thousands of pieces of information, you can't go searching row by row. So filters, pivot tables, and sorting really does the same thing as a filter. If you put them in order, either alphabetically or numerically, to look for inconsistencies. But this is how you can correct and edit your data to prepare it for analysis.